Welcome to Sex at 10. I'm Rebecca Rosenblat, certified relationship and sexuality therapist and your host, here to answer all your questions on all things intimate. Whether you're stuck in a relationship dilemma, have issues with your body, trust, trauma, addiction, or orientation, or just need a little help with turning up the heat in your bedroom, give us a shout at 1-800-968-7836 and let's chat. Everything's fair game. If you've thought about it, we can talk about it. Last week, we discussed physical infidelity. This week, we'll be beginning with a letter on emotional infidelity. I'm in an unhappy marriage that I have no intention of leaving because I couldn't do that to my kids. But as a human being, I do need to experience a connection. So I've been enjoying the company of a coworker who's in a similar situation as myself. We have no intention of sleeping together ever. Just giving each other reason to smile is enough. But my friends are accusing me of having an emotional affair. Is there such a thing? Signed, Rochelle. Rochelle, by definition, an emotional affair is based on emotional intimacy and excludes physical intimacy, so it's often referred to as an affair of the heart. And since it can establish a powerful connection, an emotional affair can end up being more harmful than a casual sexual encounter. As for frequency, chaste and emotionally intimate affairs tend to be more common than sexually intimate affairs. A recent study reported that 44% of husbands and 57% of wives indicated that they'd had an affair with a strong emotional involvement without intercourse. The reason behind such high numbers could be the fact that sexual feelings are denied intentionally in an emotional affair in order to maintain the illusion that it's just a special friendship. For this reason, I'd now like to highlight what makes such relationships more than a special friendship. According to Dr. Gail Saltz, the following 7 signs, aka red flags, suggest that you may have crossed the line. Number 1, you invest a lot of emotional energy into this person by sharing stuff that you don't even share with your partner, like hopes and dreams that would actually connect you to your partner. Number 2, you dress up for this person. 3, you find ways to spend time together, which becomes very important to you. 4, you'd feel guilty if your partner saw you together because you're saying and doing things that you wouldn't say or do in front of them. 5, you share your feelings of marital dissatisfaction. 6, you keep secret the amount of time you spend with this person, including emailing, calling, and texting. And 7, you start to depend on the emotional high that comes with the relationship. So there you have it. If you can identify with any of these red flags, hopefully you realize that you should be trying to connect with your primary partner in those ways and pull back from the person who's replacing them. So how exactly do you do that? For starters, by recognizing that you have a problem. Next, you could see a therapist to work on the issues which made you drift away from your partner in the first place. Then once you're back on track and ready to invest in your primary relationship, you could look for ways of reigniting passion and connecting in intimate ways. Good luck to you, Rochelle. Now, we're going to talk about intimacy after betrayal, because last week we talked about physical intimacy and we've just discussed emotional intimacy, and we'll be doing that with a world-class expert in the area, Alex Katehakis. Alex is the clinical director of the Center for Healthy Sex in Los Angeles, co-author of the award-winning book Mirror of Intimacy, Daily Reflections on Emotional and Erotic Intelligence, and one of my favorite teachers on the subject matter because I've had the privilege of training with her. So indeed, it's an honor and a pleasure to be presenting her to you on Sex at 10 tonight. Good evening, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Rebecca. My pleasure. Thank you.
You had a tight schedule, but you just made it a nick of time. Really appreciate that.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Alex, I once read a quote that sex is easy, intimacy is hard. It really struck me, since that's so true. So perhaps you could begin the discussion by telling us what's the difference between the two.
Well, I think people use the word intimacy as a euphemism for sex. They'll say, well, I and my partner haven't been intimate in a while, and I often wonder, does that mean they haven't had sex or they haven't had a conversation? So I think intimacy is born out of a close connection, out of being vulnerable with your partner in ways that might feel frightening or unusual, but are essential in order for us to really know one another deeply. And that sex, and I think erotic sex, evolves out of that kind of intimacy. So I don't think they are one and the same, but I do think they go together, and they're essential components, especially in long-term committed relationships.
Absolutely. It's sort of music and dance going together. You could ultimately have one or the other, but together, that's when magic happens. Now, when one cheats, what are they generally looking for? And is that different when the betrayal is addiction-focused?
Yes, I think they're two different things. I think cheating is one thing, and I think addiction, such as sex addiction, is something completely different, for example. I think that different people have different opinions about what people are looking for. Sometimes, some people, Esther Perel specifically talks about people looking for some part of themselves that they lost a long time ago, that another person will ignite some spark in ourselves that we forgot about ourselves. So we're looking for something novel, something new, finding out who we are, because life, day in and day out starts to lose its novelty.
And you mentioned Esther Perel, and she also talks about in Mating in Captivity, she talks about just that we just become friends, nothing wrong with that, but we do lose that novelty, that magic.
Correct, and I think we lose that novelty because we don't really see our partners anymore. We don't look closely into our partner's eyes and look for the novelty, that part of them that we once fell in love with. Our brains are very, very automatic. We see things and we instantaneously fill in the patterns of what we already know. And so a lamp that we bought yesterday that we just think is beautiful and we're so excited to have bought, and we bring it home and we just love it, in very short order, we don't see it anymore. And it gets dusty, or we don't pay attention to it in the way we once did. And yet when we bought it, we thought it was spectacular.
And we had to have it.
Right, but the lamp hasn't changed at all. It's our vision, how we look at it, how we see it, that changes. And in partnership, it's the same way. Are we really looking into our partner's eyes? Are we seeing them in novel situations? What about them is attractive to us, and in what setting are they most attractive?
And we tend to forget those things. I just did a weekend retreat, and I asked people a very simple question at the beginning: what attracted you to each other? And people started crying. They had forgotten what attracted them to each other. But I love the analogy of the lamp, because it is like that. We just stop noticing. We stop looking into each other's eyes. Viewers, if you're tired of having meaningless sex and would like to transition to the magic of intimacy, do call us and get in on our discussion. Alex, now obviously intimacy is the nirvana that a lot of us are searching for, but since it's based partly in trust, safety, and connection, is it possible to ever reclaim it after betrayal has cut through the core of those entities?
I think that is specific to each person. I don't think there's a simple answer. I think saying yes is a little bit cavalier because the circumstances of each person's situation are so different. We come together with people because we choose them, I think largely unconsciously, based on this automatic brain, based on what we recognize as a pattern that we grew up with. And if there is a betrayal, then sometimes for some people it's an opportunity to dig deeply into who I am and who you are and what happened, and reignite something and renegotiate the marriage or the relationship altogether. For others, it's an ending point. It's a recognition of, I chose you at a time when I wasn't very evolved or I was younger, and today I recognize that there are too many unreconcilable things and I need to move on. So I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all answer.
How true is that? Because I'm sure you've seen, as I've seen, that in some couples it is a wake-up call and they can rebuild, but other couples really do get to that point that we're different people, we're at different stages. We continue to grow, but we didn't grow together, so we grew apart. Now, viewers, if you're healing from betrayal and would love to get that intimate connection back, or perhaps even experience it for the very first time, do call us. It's a great way to get expert advice. Alex, what exactly is required by both parties to come together again if they choose after infidelity has shaken their world?
Well, I think both people have to sort of go to their separate corners initially for a short period of time and lick their own wounds.
Right.
But they also definitely need a forum, typically a couples therapy forum,
right,
where they can start to talk about what went wrong along the way. Where did we lose each other? Where did I lose myself? What had me going outside of the relationship? And
right,
what's it like for me to feel that you betrayed me so heartily? And for the person who was betrayed to be able to give voice to the pain and suffering they had as a result of the betrayer hurting them so horribly. And it's through that murky process and grappling with each other that people either come together or decide to go apart. But it does require an enormous amount of work on both people's parts.
Absolutely. Assuming that they do want to come together, they've decided to do that, and they've done all the work, can things ever be the same? And what does that look like?
Well, I don't know about anything ever being the same after today, really.
How true.
But I do think the difference between cheating and sex addiction is in cheating there was a before.
Right.
And in sex addiction, there was never a before because the sex addict was acting out for the duration of the relationship. So there is something about wanting to rekindle that spark that brought two people together and why they fell in love to begin with. And so in that regard, I think it can be the same, but it's same in a different, more mature way. It's just like anything that befalls us in life. We go innocently running off into some adventure, and if we get hurt, it's not, we're not the same as a result of it. We're changed. But it doesn't mean that the adventure wasn't good. It was just hard.
But it's very true. So even though we may be able to go back to being connected again, it does look different. And it's a good thing that it's different, because whatever we had before, obviously something along the way went wrong. So a really important point. Viewers, if you're stuck in mistrust, unable to move forward, even though your partner is doing everything possible to rebuild the relationship, tonight's a great night to talk with Alex about moving past your fears. So do call in. Alex, with the work that we do, we know that sometimes it's not even a matter of being able to trust one's partner again. It's more focused on punishing them and making them feel the pain that one is feeling, which puts a kibosh on rebuilding the intimacy that we've been talking about. So can you briefly comment on that, please?
Yes, I think, this is our animalistic nature, truly. Right. When we're wounded, a lot of our capacity for thinking is not available to us, and we're just reactionary. And it's in that reactionary place of being so in so much abject, primitive pain that we want the person who hurt us to feel as badly as we feel. But that sort of retaliatory, accusatory behavior in an ongoing way can actually start to erode the relationship in a different way. So I think the injured party, has to be very careful about processing their pain, both with their partner, but also with a therapist or a trusted other, so that every piece of hatred and vitriol that we might be experiencing doesn't come out of our mouth every 2 minutes. Because, again, stripping the foundation of the relationship when it's already been injured adds insult to injury.
Absolutely. And lots of people, they don't even realize that they're holding on. And it's like, when do you stop holding on? And after you work through the initial pain, lots of times people are still holding on because they're afraid, if I take you back and I pretend that we're okay, that you'll never realize what I felt in the first place. I have a couple more questions for you, Alex, and I believe that we have someone on the line. So I hope you're able to stick around until
Sure.
after the break. I really, really appreciate that because I have so much more to ask you. We'll be right back. Keep your calls coming and let's discuss sex, relationships, romance, or whatever else rocks your boat. And keep it locked on Rogers TV because we have lots more great stuff still ahead, including your calls. So pick up that phone and call so we can connect.